looking at the Eddi microgeneration energy diverter by Myenergi.
Okay, sounds technical before we start, so the glasses are on nice and early. Gordon, explain the rig you've built behind me here.
Okay, it's really not that complicated, Gary. I know you get scared when you see a display, buttons and an aerial, but this is quite a simple concept. This device here, the Eddi, looks at what's been generated by, say, a solar panel or possibly a wind turbine and intelligently diverts that into what we've mocked up here is an immersion heater, cunningly disguised as a kettle, which means we get a drink at the end of the video. And yeah, and it matches the power generated by the renewables and puts that into the hot water cylinder.
Right, so this area here is the airing cupboard.
Yep.
So this is a 20 amp double pole switch with a flex that normally would go into your immersion heater. Effectively, you've cut that flex and you've inserted the Eddi. I know we've got a kettle, but it's a good way of displaying the actual heating up of water. And you said it's going to divert the energy. So my solar panels now are going to heat my hot water system. How does that work?
Yeah, well, let's have a little closer look at an example. So if you bring in the hand camera, we'll have a look at what's going on the display here.
Let's have a look.
So I'll say at the minute that our display here, so this is our solar panel, this is the grid connection, our water heater here. So at the minute nothing's happening. The house is in a neutral state. We're not using any power, we're not exporting any power. So I'm going to miraculously turn on the sun, which is a miracle for us here a lot of the time.
So off camera, the sun
is now shining and producing 800 watts of energy, and that is at the moment being diverted to the grid. Now that is not an attractive option at the moment, with the feed-in tariffs being pretty low. The best option is to use that power yourself. So that's what's happening there. So I'm now going to switch on our immersion heater.
Okay. So immersion heater's on.
So now you can see that the power that was going to the grid is now diverting to our kettle / immersion heater.
Yep.
And that will gradually start to heat up.
Right, okay, so let's come back out of there. So always one for clarifying things here. This is probably a 1.8 kilowatt kettle or 3 kilowatt immersion heater, and we only had 800 watts of energy being produced by our mimicked solar panel, and it only sent that amount in there. What's that going to mean to heating of the water process? Okay,
so it will only heat as fast as the amount of solar energy that's available to put into that cylinder. Which, yeah, that obviously depending on the time of year, depending on how sunny it is, that will be a variable rate. But obviously, if you're out all day, that can take a long time, and you've got a long time.
Of course, yeah. So if I'm out of work and I want to harness the energy of my solar panels over a slow period of time, maybe half a day or whatever, I've actually diverted all that energy into my immersion heater, and I come home and got hot water. Brilliant. And I've got that for free, and I haven't exported it, and we know other tariffs are not all that good at the moment for exporting energy. However, the other problem comes when I'm at home, perhaps at the weekend, and we've used all the hot water, and I've got sunlight, might only be in at 800 watts. That's going to take a little while to heat up.
Okay, well there is a boost function. So again, Gary, if you bring the camera in, push the boost function, select heater 1, and you can see now it's drawn in some additional power from the grid to turbocharge the kettle to its maximum, which is 1.8 kilowatts, and now we can hear the kettle boiling away.
Well, that was clear. Absolutely clear as day, wasn't it? You mean, so by doing it, it speeded up so much quicker. We couldn't hear it in the early part of the presentation. It was taking 700 or 800 watts, but time for a cup of tea almost, Gordon. However, how does it know which electricity comes from, say, the solar and which is coming in from the mains?
Okay, so if you switch the kettle off, Gary, / immersion heater, you'll see we've mocked up this current transformer here, which would go around the main incoming supply, one of your tails, either the line or neutral. That sets the direction it goes in, but that monitors the amount of power flowing to and from the grid. Right,
so let's put it into concept for the people watching it. The likelihood of having a meter tail, which this is here as a meter tail, directly under your Eddi is probably remote, and we've always got a small piece of cable. And notice you've cut off a fair amount of cable that could have got us probably closer to where the metering is, or you could have extended that cable. But what if that was a real tricky process, and that might be the thing that's stopping you having the Eddi installed?
Okay, so there's a clue here, a little aerial on the top. Myenergi make a really clever piece of kit called the Harvi.
Right.
And that harvests the power generated by the magnetic field in the current transformer to send a small radio signal with that data across the devices like this, the Myenergi or the Zappi that we've seen in a previous video.
So you're saying to me, if I had the Harvi located close to where my meter tails is, my CT clipped onto my either line or neutral, whichever one you wanted to choose, it would send the radio frequency signal to here, and it means I didn't have to wire it back.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's the really clever bit about it.
Well, they've thought about everything, haven't they? Yeah. Now I'm a little bit nervous. I'm going to leave the glasses on. Can we take the cover off and have a look at the clever stuff inside?
Yeah, we'll have a look because there's a few other secrets buried inside in the electronics. I'll isolate the supply.
Right, so what you put that cover. So this is the bit that I'm really interested in. I'm hoping it's simple. I'm hoping because you've cut this flex, it's not going to be a difficult task, but with the CT and that, Gordon's going to hopefully explain to me what's going on inside the Eddi. Okay, Gordon, so cover's nearly off. There's going to be a hand cam time for us, so here we go. So do you want me to take the cover? There's lots of green boards. Okay, just out of the way with that. So let's just have a real closer look and maybe you can explain some of that stuff for me, Gordon.
Yeah, okay, so first you'll see there is a lot of electronics in here, and it's all made in the UK by Myenergi. So, so the first thing you probably notice is there's quite a robust heatsink on the back.
Yes.
Because this device does some switching, but just more than switching actually. So with a lot of, an easy way to think of this is a bit like a dimmer.
Right.
So it's regulating the power flow into the actual immersion heater.
Right.
But this does this in a really clever way with something Myenergi called the Varisine technology. So it uses it basically chops the waveform up to regulate that power flow. Not in the way a dimmer would do that, quite crudely, and very sharp edges on either the leading or the trailing edge. This technology, the advantage of it is it's almost silent in its operation, where other versions of this type of technology would be quite noisy, certainly not something you want sitting in your airing cupboard.
Right, okay.
Disturbing your sleep.
Right, from an electrician's point of view, talk me through these connections then.
Okay, so the connection's very simple.
I like that already.
There you go. Here's the input.
Okay.
And here's the output.
That's it.
Well, so you will notice on the output here there's an option for a second heater.
Oh yeah.
So say in a water cylinder you may have the top heater and the bottom heater. You can prioritise obviously the top one to get some instant hot water, but you may have another one that once that one is up to temperature you can switch to the lower heater to obviously power up the whole tank.
Okay, how many amps is it rated at?
So this is 16 amps, or about 3.8 kilowatts.
Okay, yeah, I can see that just there.
Yeah.
And just explain the CT for me, please.
Okay, so obviously the bit where it gets its information about what's happening in the supply and use of power to the house, we need this small current transformer connection here. So
that goes down to here. That's a mimic tail for us.
Yeah.
And we've just got two simple connections there in order to make that connection.
Yeah, so the word on the heating, obviously this is a very robust unit. It is designed to go in the cupboard where possibly the immersion heater could be, and if that tank's not well insulated, you don't want the actual electronics itself affected by the heat from that. So that's why it's got a very robust heatsink on there.
It looks very clever, but from the electrician's point of view, I'd like to say it's very simple to connect.
Yeah, so it's very, very simple to connect, but there's the whole wealth of things that Myenergi make goes behind it. You can add an expansion card to it. So if you want to actually monitor the temperature in the tank using this unit, you can add an expansion card and put some thermocouples into the central heating tank to regulate the exact temperature of the water, or trigger some other remote devices. Okay,
so what's nice is the technology from Myenergi is the very complicated bit. And back to the electrician, I've got a supply cable coming in. I've got a supply out to my immersion heater, very simple, and two connections to a CT, which I can hardwire all the way to my tails, or I can use the Harvi that we suggested earlier on.
Yeah, it gets even simpler, Gary.
Oh, please.
There's even a switch underneath. If you don't want to work, there is an app that goes with it. You can control all this from an app. But if you get into a little bit of a panic and you just need some hot water now, you can just flick on a small bypass switch underneath, or switch the unit off underneath it as well.
Right, okay, so thought of everything, I would suggest.
Yeah. So obviously the primary target for this is water heating, but it will work with anything with a resistive element, so you don't necessarily want to be trying to control things that have electronic timers in line with them, because obviously you reduce the power and alter the power flow to the unit, you could affect that, but you could use this with underfloor heating. We've heard tales that people even use it to control electric argus, which can be an energy millstone for the owners, so great advantage there, or storage heaters as well. Okay, so that's brilliant. So that's harnessing the energy that you've produced yourself, either by solar or wind, in order to divert it, in this case, into a hot water system, making sure that you take every penny that you possibly can of that energy and keep it rather than exporting it. Yeah. So Team eFIXX, as well as our friends at Myenergi, are always interested in your comments. Have you fitted the Eddi before? Have you fitted a Harvi before? Have you fitted any other products from Myenergi, such as the Zappi 2 EV charging? If you haven't seen that video, I recommend you check that one out on the channel as well. And we will try and get back to as many of these comments as we can.